Hey, what up, everyone? This is Bird the Nerd with another, well, I haven't done one in a long time, but a magazine, collectible magazine market report for the week of last week and throughout this week. If you do enjoy these channels or these episodes, whatever you want to call them, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment below. I've always kind of gone into magazines kind of on a more of a collectible, path. However, the market's very, very premature, and there are only a few kind of like, I guess you call huge ones to look out for, but there's nothing really super crazy, and it's actually a pretty fun market or collectible to look for. And I'm learning as I go, and there are a ton of experts out there. I'm just trying to find my way into it, but I hope you guys enjoy the show. Let's get into it. So I have about 8 magazines. They're all graded prices of this. I just basically went on eBay and did CGC magazine and went through about 25 different magazines that I felt were relative to what I like, per se. It's very heavy in sports because that's essentially the number one area you're going to look for in magazines. I tried to see if these were subscription, newsstand. You always want to try and get the newsstand. However, it's easier to get the subscriptions. There are ways to remove labels from subscription era or subscription magazines, but if you send in a subscription magazine that doesn't have a label on it, CGC is going to know. I don't know how they know. I think it's probably just the UPC, but just an FYI, if you are thinking about removing a label. First up, Tiger Woods, the Sports Illustrated from April 16th of 2001. This is $135 for a newsie in 9.4. Now, it is not easy to get 9.8s in magazines, regardless of when you get them. They're just really hard. There's so many pages in a magazine. They are not always flat. And CGC is really tough on the grading on these. So 9.4 newsie for a magazine that's about 24 years old. I got to assume that this was read with love. It's pretty hard to... I think personally it's kind of difficult to press these guys. Again, they're just really, really strict on them. This is honestly one of the best Tiger Woods, I would say, magazines to get, other than the SI, of course, some other, earlier prints, the fabled Golf Digest, where he's like inside the guts. What's also pretty cool about this magazine is it's essentially one of the first appearances of Albert Pujols in the guts. I researched Albert Pujols. He was one of my favorite all-time baseball players, and if you get this magazine, he's actually there's an article about how he's kind of this unknown kind of player. It's right before, or it's kind of in the beginning of the baseball season, but they didn't really talk about him prior to, so that was pretty cool. Next, but hold on one second. I hate it when that happens. Technical difficulties, peeps. All right. What the heck? Okay, 1984, the GOAT, Michael Jordan, covered 6.0. Maybe I did not upload it. Here, let's just take a look here. Okay. Well, this is the magazine I'm talking about here in a 6.0. Wow. A Star is Born, Sports Illustrated 1984. This is the infamous Michael Jordan cover. Now, this one sells for $2,150. This was a sale from a couple months ago, but I still want to highlight it. Now, this has to be obviously the newsstand version. The one I found for quite a bit less, $400. That was the subscription version. Now you can see here, there are not a ton of these out there, but if you find a newsstand, grade it. Even the 2.0s, I'm sure you could get like $400 for it. But from what I know, this is the first appearance of Michael Jordan on cover in a Bulls uniform. There are previous iterations of Jordan. I have his first appearance as a high school McDonald's All-American. That one's very cheap, doesn't go for that much, but this one, people want this particular magazine. Pretty cool and insane for it, the fact that it goes for that much, but I'm too dumb to post a picture of it on my slides. Next up, Nintendo Power number 114. Now, this is the subscription version. I don't know. I wonder if a 6.5 in the newsstand would go for of this, but this is just a random, essentially Nintendo Power. But I believe this is the Nintendo Power that highlights the first Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time when kind of highlighting the game. I don't know. I'd love to pick this up and just read it, but for me, I think this is a pretty important Zelda magazine to get. I'm wondering if Nintendo magazine specifically with in regards to Zelda, if it has like a story or preview of that Zelda game like that coming out. I think that'll be important for Zelda collectors. And I feel like Zelda is the number one collectible to collect amongst many age ranges versus Pokemon or even Mario as far as the video game's concerned. Now, Pokemon in general, right? It's kind of different story. But when it comes to the kind of the best games to collect, Zelda's number one amongst everything, in my opinion. So pretty cool 6.5 for a subscription version. I'd rather get the newsstand. Keeping it back or going back just to sports. Shohei Ohtani, I thought this was really interesting, right? Like, so obviously, I remember the Sports Illustrated with him in an Angels uniform was going for like $1.25, like raw. I wasn't looking up graded copies of it, but this is the first Ohtani in a Dodgers uniform, and it's obviously new because it came out last year. I don't know the exact month on this now, Sports Illustrated, if you don't know, has gone from not so much weekly, but now monthly issues just because people don't buy magazines anymore. I wonder if this is conducive of lower print runs, a newsstand. Like, where do you get Sports Illustrated anymore? Like Barnes and Noble or your grocery store, really? But 700 huge dollars for a 9.8 of this. I gotta imagine it's pretty hard to get a 9.8 of these newsstand copies. Also, you got to think about like there's just not that many out there as far as going to Barnes and Noble, or like I just said. So I thought it was really a very cool sale of the best player in baseball. Beckett basketball number 1. This is probably my most coveted Beckett of all time. I remember as a kid, like Beckett's weren't really collectible. I mean, they were only lasting a month. You buy it at your local sports card store, and I mean, I don't really remember like keeping them really because the data was just outdated. But I know I remember always wanting either a Griffey one, Ichiro back in the day, and Jordan. Those were my top 3 ones to get. I'd throw A-Rod in there too, I guess, and maybe Penny Hardaway. But more so, like when I think of back issues as a kid, I remember wanting to pay like $50 for this back in like the late 90s and wanting it. 9.2 sold for $100. I couldn't tell if it was a newsstand or a subscription, but I mean, a 9.2 of this magazine has it's essentially like a 9.8, of an older book. But I feel like this belongs in every kid's collection. $100 for a 9.2, I would pay that all day. Maybe crack and press it and try and get a higher grade, but who cares? I wouldn't even want to get this autographed, honestly, by Michael Jordan. But I thought it was a really important one to have. If you're a collector, if you are in the market for one, $100 for 9.2, that's easy money right there for me to buy. This was a cool one. Now, this sale came from, I think, February this year. Bitcoin magazine, the first issue that came out. This is just a perfect magazine for this era. I think this magazine came out in 2011, I want to say, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of like, nostalgia. I would say a little bit of controversy in this cover, but it's pretty cool that there's a paper copy of a digital subject, right? 5K for 9.6, which I think is insane. I don't think there's any subscription of this magazine. It's all newsstands. So if you do find one, I think this would be cool just to maybe find it for $100 and try and get a high grade in it, or just a grade in general. I think it'd be cool, but I can understand the $9.6 the 9.6 sale, because someone who bought this probably traded in some Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, but maybe some meme coins or something to buy this magazine, which I think is kind of cool. But very interesting. I don't know if it'll hold, but That's a healthy sell for a magazine that was probably $10, if that, on the newsstands. And I think this is, oh, I got one more after this. One Piece magazine. This is it's One Piece PSA. So PSA puts out a subscription service every month, and they do all sorts of subjects. Like this one, I remember talking about last year. It's One Piece. This particular magazine came out with a card that everybody graded. What's also cool about these PSA magazines is they issue them in like the regular version. There's a 1 in 50 version. There's like a 1 in 25, and you can't buy them. They just send them out randomly. This particular sale sold for $3K. There was a 1 in 50, a 1 in 25, and the regular cover 96, 94, 85 respectively. And the PSA 10 of that card sold in a lot for $3K, which I thought was insane. But this is very beloved by anyone who's into One Piece. Pokemon is the king when it comes to trading card games. I think One Piece is a very close number 2. I don't think anything will ever supersede Pokemon, but this is One Piece is hot, man. I mean, it's just nothing about it. When this magazine came out, they were selling for like $200 to $300 for the magazine itself and the card. I wish I would have paid that. I think it's a long-term hold, and it's a great investment if you're a PSA or One Piece fan. And last but not least, in honor of Duke choking in the Final Four, and this guy just missing the shot. Cooper Kupp, he's got talent. I don't know if it's Wemby status so much. I think he's going to be at best Antoine Walker. I think he's got great skill. He's got a great 6'8", small forward body, but he's either Carmelo or Antoine Walker. I don't know. I said Zion just because I thought of Duke, but now that I think about it, his frame and his work ethic, I mean, he's a great ball player, but he doesn't give me Carmelo vibes. I just don't know if he'll carry a team, or it was like, I don't know. I don't think he's like that once in a generation talent that some people put him on a pedestal of. However, Slam gold medal 96, so there's only 50 of these. If someone can correct me on in the chat, or not the chat, in the comments below, let me know. But 2K for a 96. Again, these slam, if you can find a marquee player that year in metal, I would go for it. These are sent directly from Slam, and they go really quick. There's a Caitlin Clark one out there, which I think would have been a better one to get rather than this one. However, $2,000. I hope for the kid. I hope he does really well in the NBA next year. I just personally don't want to pay that much for someone who hasn't stepped on an NBA floor yet, who isn't like a consensus once in a generation talent, which I don't really think he is, but he's a great player. Anyway, that's your market report for our magazines this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll try and put out more stuff out there. You guys can do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment below, tell me how stupid I am or how amazing the video was, and we'll keep this going. Have a great night. Take care. Enjoy the draft.